Great. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to give it 1 minute for people who are sort of still trickling in, and then we'll get started. Great. Why don't we get going? Hi, everyone. My name is Camille Mackler. I'm the Executive Director of Immigrant ARC. We are a coalition of over 80 nonprofits that provide immigration and legal services throughout New York State, and we're delighted to be here with everyone. I'm going to be putting the speaking order, which has changed slightly from the media advisory, into the chat, and I will ask you to put your questions into either the chat or the Q&A. You'll see that we're being joined by two very brave Afghan women. For their safety and for the sanctity of the process, we won't be sharing where they are today, and they won't be answering questions about the process they're going through. We're happy to make connections for the future, but for today, and we also appreciate your patience as they try to connect to internet and the phone. They will be speaking last because they wanted some time to hear from all of us first. So we have a lot of amazing speakers today. I don't want to take up too much time. I just want to say that as IARC, as a coalition, we've been involved with efforts to evacuate Afghan interpreters and other allies since April's withdrawal announcement by the Biden administration. We worked hard to try to avoid what happened, but unfortunately we know that the events of August 14th, once they took place, plunged that country into crisis. And I want to say that as someone who moved to New York at 22 years old in June of 2001, and was here for the terror attacks, to me, this story is a New York story. Our history, our past, our future are so tied to what has happened in Afghanistan for the last 20 years and how we move forward from this. Since August 14th, we have been working around the clock. Immigrant ARC is a steering committee member of the Evacuate Our Allies Coalition. And we have been working within that coalition that brings together veterans, frontline civilians, legal service providers, refugee resettlement agencies, and others to work to make sure that first we evacuated as many Afghans to safety as possible, and now to ensure that they receive a proper welcome here while we continue to work to assist those who we left behind and try to get them here, or at least to safety as well. So today we're launching the Afghan Resettlement Project in New York, and our hope is to bring together our members, legal service providers, as well as social service providers, funders, policymakers, elected leaders, others, so that we have a comprehensive plan in place for New Yorkers to do what they do best, which is to rise up to the challenge, rise up in crisis, and help solve the problems and help make sure that those who are here feel welcome and those who are not here yet can finally come here. So you'll be hearing a lot more from us in the next few weeks about this program. This is what New Yorkers do best. We're ready to stand up. We're ready to honor the commitments we made to the brave Afghans who fought alongside us since the 9/11 terror attacks and who believed in the better and more peaceful Afghanistan that we all promised. I haven't done this alone. We have had so many incredible partners, and I'm so honored to be here with several of them today. I want to start by welcoming Assemblywoman Patricia Fahey from Albany. I mean, you and I have been texting at all hours of the night. Your efforts have been incredible to help these families. Assemblywoman, thank you so much for being here today with us. Oh, you're on mute, Assemblywoman.
Yes, thank you. And Camille, such a pleasure to be here with you, as well as my colleagues, Jake Ashby, a veteran himself, and my other colleague, Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz, who I know you're going to hear from momentarily. And sorry if I'm jumping the line because I have yet another event. It's been a day of events. But I did not want to miss this because there is probably no issue that has affected me more this summer than this. And you are an absolute breath of fresh air, Camille. And yes, we texted at all hours of the night as we tried frantically to help so many families. And I have to say, it's probably for all the work that was done, it's probably one of the most discouraging efforts I've ever been a part of, quite frankly. As you said, many were blindsided. There could have been months and months of work on this, not questioning the administration's desire to withdraw, not questioning that at all. But I'm still absolutely dismayed with the way it was carried out, and the fact that estimates are that there are 118,000 or tens of thousands of families, of Afghan families who had been allied with this country, worked with this country and our veterans over the last 20 years, who are still trapped there. So I look forward to not only welcoming those who have and are about to come into our shores, but I also look forward to still continuing to champion the efforts of those who we have left behind, who have been our allies, as well as championing the efforts of women and girls, hundreds of thousands of who had their first chance over the last 20 years to have an education, and we somewhat assume, given the history of the Taliban, that they may now lose that opportunity at an education and employment. So really some horrific work that, or horrific worries, given some of the past abuses or past history here. So we have a lot of work to do, but on a positive note, I want to join forces with you every day on this resettlement effort. I am not from New York. I'm from Chicago, but my parents came off the boat, the last of a generation to come off the boat in the New York City harbor. Yes, New York has been that beacon, as you said, Camille. That is what we have stood for. We know that has actually helped the growth of New York. It's actually helped to transform some of our hurting upstate cities, such as Albany, that I represent, Utica, and others. So diversity, whether it's ethnic and racial diversity, has really been some of the strength of this state. We just have to make sure we do more to address some of the economic diversity that so many struggle with. But again, thank you for your work. There is so much to be done here, but I do think it's important that we show these allies, the families that are coming over, or have been evacuated, that we are a welcoming place, and it is a way of saying thanks for the support that they gave our troops, that I know you'll hear more about from Assemblymember Jake Ashby, when he and others of his colleagues were located there for 20 years. So I'll stop there, but there is just so much, and I think these efforts are just beginning. We need more of them, but I can't say enough. Huge shout out to all the veterans groups that have really tried to save so many families these last few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman, and we look forward to rolling up our sleeves and continuing to work together. And speaking of which, Assemblywoman Cruz, you and I have been doing this fight for a decade at least together, and you led a letter effort in the Assembly right at the beginning of this crisis. So we'd love to hear from you next.
Thank you, Camille. I'd actually like to do something a little bit different, because I think from those folks who are on the ground, it's important to kind of hear some of those lessons. So I would love to hear from my colleague Jake first, and then I'll speak if that's okay with you. I think, and I'll tell you why I want to do this. When we were trying to figure out how to help, and we sent that letter, Jake and I developed a really, really good relationship, because we're working on another bill that actually helps immigrant veteran families. And he texted me a picture of him trying to help someone reunite with their family. And I suspect he will tell a little bit of that. So I'd rather yield my time to him. I'll speak after him if that's okay with you. But Jake, it's always good to see you. Pat, it's always good to see you. So if you can do us that solid of sharing your story and why you support these efforts.
I don't know how to beat that introduction, Assemblyman Ashby, so I'll just hand it over to you. I will just have to say that one of the eye-opening experiences I've had as an immigrant advocate in the last few months is seeing what this means and how betrayed the veteran community has felt. And so we thank you for your service, and we know how personal this is. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, I appreciate that, Camille, and I want to thank Immigrant ARC and Human Rights First and Evacuate Our Allies for all of the great work that that they've done and that they're continuing to do, and really swimming upstream with this effort. And I want to thank Pat Fahey for helping me connect with you all, and for my friend Catalina Cruz, who has so graciously allowed me to go first again. And she has a habit of doing this when we talk about these issues. And I want to say thank you for, her friendship, number one, and also her bold efforts and continued dedication to this cause. So briefly, a little background on me. I served in the United States Army, Army Reserves from 2006, 2014. I was deployed to Iraq in 08, 09, and Afghanistan and Coast Province 11, 12. I spent some time in Africa as well. And while I was in Afghanistan, developed a friendship with one of our interpreters over there, helped him get his SIV. It took a number of years because the paperwork kept getting lost, and it was a very tumultuous time getting him over stateside. And then when we had been trying to help get his family over here too, but as it happened before, there were a lot of hurdles, there were a lot of roadblocks with this. And, he's someone who risked his life, not only for my time over there, but for 8 years. 8 years he risked his life with our service members. And his family did as well. They had to move multiple times, and they have faced death threats, attempts on their lives, abductions numerous times. He still has 7 family members over there who are in hiding from the Haqqani network. And unfortunately, right now we just saw news last week that the new Interior Ministry for Afghanistan is Haqqani. So it's a very, very precarious situation, dangerous situation that they find themselves in. And so these continued efforts are essential to get them out. And they're not alone. There's tens of thousands of people who find themselves in this position. And when it seemed like the country just started eroding at a more rapid rate, I drove down to Texas to help him advocate with his congressman down there. And I had hoped for a better outcome, but we made our voice heard, and we continued the efforts up here in New York. And even right now, I'm at a Little League field down in Saugerties for a veterans event. And this is the number one issue that we're talking about. And I'm down here with Congressman Delgado, my colleague Dee Dee Barrett, Chris Tague, Senator Michelle Hinchy, and we're talking to veterans groups down here about this, and we're hearing about it every day. So I know that I'm not alone in this effort. And if anything, it has been a unifying event for a lot of different reasons. And I'm grateful for the support. And I look forward to working together with so many of you. And, when I had reached out to Pat Fahey about this, I had some legislation in mind. And I said the same thing to Catalina, and they kind of had the same response, but Pat was a little bit more direct with it. She said, I can't think about legislation right now because we need to focus on still getting people out. And that absolutely, that type of attitude, it's inspiring. And it's inspiring for me, as a veteran and as a colleague of hers in the New York State Assembly. So thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing from the other speakers today.
Thank you, Assemblyman. All right, Assemblywoman Cruz, I'm going to try this again with you now.
Thank you so much. And, the reason why I wanted Jake to speak first, it's because I think people need to understand that this is a bipartisan issue. This is the kind of issue where Republicans and Democrats can have that meeting of the minds, where it's not about politics, it's about literally saving the lives of people. And these were folks who helped our service people stay alive. These are folks who were under tyranny for a very long time and now are under worse circumstances. We all saw the horrific pictures of people throwing babies over gates, of people running to an airplane, of airplanes completely filled with people who simply wanted an opportunity to live. That's as basic as it gets. People who want an opportunity to live. And that's why we're all here to support these efforts, to call more attention to the issue, because it isn't just going to be enough to get people out. So let's say we get everybody out, which would be the ideal. I hear my birth country of Colombia, actually I just returned from there, they're taking 4,000 folks in. And we should be taking a couple of thousand, if not, million or two. everybody else is going to be taking some folks in, because this is about everybody coming together to simply save lives. But it isn't just about that. So what do we do next? Now we need to figure out where they're going to be, how we're going to house them, how are we going to give them the real tools to become members of our community who can provide for themselves, who we can support. And that's going to take some time. And that's a conversation that we need to begin having now. We can chew gum and walk at the same time, Pat. So you help us advocate to get people out. We'll help advocate to make sure that they are treated in the most humane and dignified way possible when they get here. Now, I happen to represent a district that has a large South Asian population, a large community of folks who have family members in Afghanistan. And they are worried. They're worried sick of not only can they get them out, but if they get them out, what do we do to help them have that life here? And that's what we're here to say, yes. And while some folks may not agree, I'm one of those who think, while I want peace, at what cost? When you move too quickly, are you really creating peace? When you move too quickly and didn't actually plan ahead, are you disrupting more than you needed to? And that's something for us to think about, because if we are going to really create the kind of world we want to be a part of, we can't just, after we decided to meddle in foreign affairs, granted it's 20 years of meddling in foreign affairs, pull our sources and our troops out as quickly as we did in a way that not only harms the people we said we were trying to help, but frankly, it's a slap in the face to people like Jake who spent decades fighting for our country. And so we need to be cognizant not just of that, but really, really committed to having welcoming arms, which frankly, our country hasn't been well known for doing that as of recent. I am committed to continuing to figure out how do we support this community. I thank you, Camille, and the folks who work with you for really helping us push this forward, because we're elected, but we can't do this on our own. We count on allies like you to get this done. And I urge folks to think about this in the way that Pat, Jake, and I are thinking about it. It's not along party lines. This is along humanity. How do we create the kind of country that continues to welcome people, regardless of where they come from, and really provides them an opportunity to live? It is as simple as that. And so thank you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you all to save more lives.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. And we have a long track record of doing that side by side. And so looking forward to this next iteration of the fight. But speaking of the welcoming arms and the ones who are really doing the work, I want to introduce Karen Andalina Scott, the Executive Director of Journeys and Refugee Services in Buffalo, who every day you go to work making sure that refugees and Afghan refugees are welcome and set up and safe in their new home. And so thank you for joining us today, Karen.
Thank you so much, Camille. And thank you all for being here. We feel fortunate to be doing the work in a state like New York. I can't imagine doing some of the other states. And so we really appreciate all of the advocacy efforts, the funding efforts. And this is really just the beginning of the work. So Journey's End is in the unique position of not only being a refugee resettlement agency, but we also have a very large immigration legal services program where we have been working on these parole applications to help evacuate Afghans for the last few weeks, and really working around the clock to do so. And the results have been disappointing and devastating, and to be working alongside coworkers who have there, it is it's a struggle and it's emotional, and unfortunately it isn't the first time that the U.S. has made some promises to allies abroad and then not lived up to those promises. So I feel like we have really learned. I'm hopeful that this is a lesson that we won't have to learn again. But being a refugee resettlement agency, we are really fortunate in being able to work with these evacuees once they do come to the United States. In Buffalo, I'm sorry, my internet is not great. I apologize. In Buffalo, we have a really strong resettlement community. There are 5 agencies working together, Buffalo for Afghan evacuees, where we are sharing resources and advocacy in order to support these individuals once they do come into our community. That includes advocacy around funding, housing, access to services, which is huge, access to benefits. Unfortunately, the majority of the evacuees will be entering as parolees, which means that they are not entering as refugees, and they won't have access to the same services and benefits that refugees are able to access. These parolees also do have a direct path to permanent residency or citizenship, which means that true integration won't be able to happen for them. They won't be able to access certain services at all, like I was saying, or others because they won't be able to become citizens. And so Fahey is correct. Once they're here, right, it's not just enough to have them here. What do we do once they're here? There's a lot of federal advocacy to allow these individuals to change their status, adjust their status once they're here. There's a lot of advocacy around having them be eligible for services and benefits. And these individuals will not thrive here unless these advocacy efforts are fruitful. You can't have people come from extremely traumatic situations, very, very recent trauma, and not have Medicaid availability to them. They have to be able to access mental health services. They have to be able to get their work authorization in a timely way because they cannot access other safety nets. When they're able to work, we want to be able to put them into jobs. We want to be able to take English language classes. These are some of the things that other refugees are able to access due to their status. And so we are really counting on federal officials to assist these individuals once they are here in changing their status. Lack of status, it's kind of complicated, but from a parolee, and to be able to hopefully adjust to permanent residence within a certain period of time.
Thank you, Karen, for all of that. It's the work ahead is huge just for those who are here, and then there's the work for those who are left behind. But we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep working at it, and thank you for everything that you've done. I want to end. We had 2 women recently evacuated within the last 2 weeks. One of them had to go into an immigration interview, and so we're definitely thrilled to hear that. But I do want to introduce Arifa Naibi, who's here to speak a little bit about her experience and what she hopes for now that she's come to safety. And Arifa, because of where she is, can't connect to video. There's just not enough internet bandwidth, so she'll be speaking by phone.
Hi, everybody. I'm here with Arifa. Arifa, do you want to go ahead and talk to the group?
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready for you. Go ahead. Arifa, can you hear me? Yep, we're on. If you want to talk about the goals and things that you wanted here in America that we talked about.
Oh, you asked me some question or?
The question was, like, what were your concerns for Afghan women in America, and what are your goals? What did you want to do in America?
For just, oh God, I'm so excited, right? cannot what to do and what to say.
One second, y'all.
While we wait for Arifa, if there's any questions for her that are specific, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A so that we can get to those and maybe help Arifa gather her thoughts. Feel free to just put them in the chat or in the Q&A.
All right, Arifa's ready. Go ahead.
I want to go to language. The first, I want to go to the language class, and after I learn the language professionally, then I start the university.
Very good, Arifa. What else?
And then I want to make a dream come true that I couldn't do in Afghanistan. Here I want to do it in the US military, and I want to be a great soldier in every sense of the word.
Thanks, Arifa.
Arifa, could you tell us a little bit about what it was like?
Can you hear me, sister?
Go ahead, Camille.
What it was like to be in Afghanistan and to have to come here to the United States in the way that you did? Did she hear me?
She did. Yeah, we're thinking 1 second.
Okay, no problem. We know that this is extremely, we're very grateful to Arifa for joining us today because the last 2 weeks have been extremely difficult and she's in an extremely difficult place. And we're happy to make connections down the road for anybody who wants to follow up, if that's easy.
Because the situation was very dangerous in Afghanistan, and I wasn't listed before because the situation was very dangerous in Afghanistan because of this Taliban, and no.
Yeah, that's good, Arifa.
Thank you, Arifa. I know that our assembly members had to drop off because of other commitments, but if there's any questions that anybody has, we're also happy to connect and follow up on the story of Arifa and her colleagues who are part of a group of Afghan female soldiers who worked hand in hand with our US troops on peace building efforts and cultural efforts in Afghanistan, and who have now come to the United States as a result of the events of the last few weeks. And I'm happy offline if anyone wants to email press@immigrantarc.org to provide more context and connections and follow up. But if anyone has any questions right now, we're happy to answer them now as well. Okay, I don't see any questions. Thank you all so much for joining. I will repeat the email address. Yes, I just saw that in the chat. Press@immigrantarc.org. Please feel free to email us. We'll be adding you all to our press list. We're going to be having a lot more announcements over the next few weeks about what we're planning here in New York and in connection with our national partners. As far as I'm concerned, the Biden administration did not start the evacuation, civilians did, because we saw what was coming and we started trying to help. And we, as far as we're concerned, it's not over. August 31st was not our deadline, and we are not done trying to get those who we left behind out here to safety and making sure that those who did make it here are helped and are welcomed and have the benefit of being part of this incredible state that we all share together. So thank you all for joining. Excuse me. This is a lot more to come, and please feel free to reach out if there's anything at any point. Thank you.